Sup, y'all?
Sup, y'all?
Welcome to another episode of We Don't Know Her. I'm Katie.
Oh, and I'm Christy, if you didn't know.
And today, guys, you're going to be so excited to hear it's not just us. We finally, have a guest again. It's been some time, but, you know, we're really making up for it with a really good one. So,
well, I think, we needed time to get a really good guest.
Yeah.
You know, so we were just cooking and brewing, and we found one.
Quality over quantity. So today we have a really special interview with Mario Radinger, who is a quantum healing hypnosis technique practitioner. So if you listened to our episode a few weeks ago, a month ago-ish, where we talked about Dolores Cannons and the key to the universe, we were talking about this QHHT, what she invented, and Mario is a practitioner of that as well as BQH, which is Beyond Quantum Hypnotherapy.
Healing.
Yep.
There's a lot of letters. There's a lot of letters, but he also is an Akashic record reader, which if you're not familiar with that, or QHHT or BQH, this episode is very all-inclusive, and he breaks it down in very digestible information for basic humans like us. And again, I mean, he just does so much, so we really recommend checking out his work.
Yeah, you can find him he plugs himself away at the end, but I'll still, help promote him anyway, at _soul_journeys with an S on Instagram. He also has a YouTube page, and he's a practitioner, so you can either work with him in person. He spends his time between Frankfurt and Mallorca, no big deal, like
just living
a dream
truly life.
And if not, you can schedule an online reading with him for BQH. Guys, it's so hard because I definitely am dyslexic and I don't know what to do. Okay.
Well, it's exactly what it's called. It's a soul journey. So anyone out there who is maybe interested or feeling inspired lately to learn about their higher selves, that's really what this is about. And I mean, so much more. I can't even compress
If you're listening to this podcast, this will be a dream for you. This is everything we love to know about and more. So I hope you guys enjoy the episode, and
see you next week.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. I'm Christy, by the way.
And I'm Katie.
Hi, Christy. Hi, Katie. Mario here.
Yes.
Nice to you.
So nice to meet you. We're really excited to connect with you. We have been really interested in QHHT for a little while, and we really wanted to talk to somebody who really knows more about it, because as you know, I mean, as somebody who's just discovered it, I'm like, where do you begin? There's just so much to take in. We did a podcast episode about it a few weeks, probably a month and a half ago, where we kind of did the gist of it, and again, tried to cram in as much.
Didn't do it justice at all. It was a new revelation for both of us, and we were mind blown by it. So now we're to be able to talk to you about it, I think will be really helpful.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, anything that you can say as much as you can is great.
Mm-hmm.
I can totally relate to how you're feeling, because I remember when I found QHHT, what that felt like.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely changed my mind, my life completely, and my mind. It was a revelation.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, thanks for having me. I appreciate that so much, because I know there are a lot of practitioners in your country, and I think it's amazing that you reach across the pond, so to speak, to talk to me. So thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. Honestly, I found you initially, and I really it was kind of one of those gut things where I just felt like you were the person that we should speak to about it. It was just kind of one of those things. And I'm one of those people who, if my gut says to do it, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Even if the person's like, how did you find me?
Okay.
So, and honestly, at this point, we're really interested in a lot of things in America are America centric and only have American guests and American people. And we're not huge fan. We're American, but we're not huge fans of Americans. So the less American it is, the better for all of us.
Okay. Well, I can say that the work I'm doing is definitely universal. You could say it kind of unites everyone on this planet, because in QHHT, in quantum healing hypnosis therapy, or technique as it is called nowadays, you work with other levels of the self. Many people call it the higher wisdom or the higher self. I like to call it the superconscious, compared to the subconscious that psychology usually works with. Right. And I found QHHT back in 2014. My best friend and I, we had been on our spiritual awakening for a couple of years by then. And one day he sent me a link to a YouTube video. It was an interview with Dolores Cannons. And I clicked on the video and I listened to her talk. And after 1 or 2 minutes, my body started tingling completely from the top down to my toes. And there was a voice inside of me and it told me, you have to learn this. You have to learn this. And I didn't really have a choice. It was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And my best friend and I, we actually learned it together, which was quite an amazing experience because we were able to practice on each other what we were learning in the course. Yeah. And so each of us had a lot of sessions ourselves, as clients, so to speak, before we started working with clients. So that was a great beginning. Yeah. And how does it work? Well, when you're a client who books a quantum healing hypnosis technique session, your practitioner uses hypnosis to help you enter a state of consciousness in which you are able to transcend time and space, you could say, and enter other lifetimes of yours. And this might be past lifetimes or future lifetimes, parallel lifetimes. Anything is possible, really, because it's your higher self, your superconscious, that designs your journey. And that would be the second part of a session. After the exploration part, you could say, into other existences, you get to communicate directly with your higher self. Or I should rather say your practitioner will communicate with your higher self that will be speaking through you. And some people might say, okay, that sounds like a form of channeling almost, right? And I have to say it kind of is. And that's also part of the glory of this work, of the beauty, because as a practitioner, you get to help people connect with their higher wisdom, their higher self, and actually channel that wisdom into their lives and turn their lives completely around if they choose to do so. So that's the core of it.
It's really interesting. Like, it feels like it's something that it's so funny. First of all, I don't want to forget that it's hilarious how you found QHHT, because that is exactly how we found it. I found Dolores Cannons one day and it was the same thing. I saw a YouTube video. Within a minute, I felt like my brain exploded. I sent it to her while she was at work and I was like, maybe you should leave work. Like, this feels more important than work. So just watch this video as soon as you can. And it felt like all of the things that we had believed in for so long were finally like, this is how they're all connected.
It just made sense all of a sudden.
Yeah, because we had said, like, we knew that we felt like we each were channeling. Sometimes even when we're doing this podcast, we kind of were told by our higher selves via somebody else to start this podcast. So sometimes it feels like that's the whole purpose of this. And to understanding how channeling, how past lives and future lives and other dimensions and the karmic wheel and everything kind of tie in, it felt like a light bulb moment. And it feels like such a gift that not enough people know about. It feels like something that could really, like you said, change your life, change everyone's life if they knew about it. So how did you find it? Like, other than like when you first started it with your friend, how did you decide, like, I want to now do this professionally for a living, not just continue to be a practitioner or to be a client?
Well, I always had the intention of doing it because I imagined this work to be spectacular when I did the course. And after I did my first real sessions with other people than my best friend, and I experienced the magic for real. And I realized, wow, this is actually working. I guess that is when I really believed that this could be a career, a professional job. And of course, at the time, 8 years ago, that's when I started 8 years ago, topics like spirituality and metaphysics were much more fringe topics than they are nowadays. And so there were not that many people who knew about it, like you just said. And I probably had 1 or 2 sessions every month, and of course, in the beginning, I didn't charge any money for it because I wanted to gain experience.
Right.
And not have any performance pressure, because that can really make consciousness work difficult. And so I had another job at the time. I was a professional dance teacher.
Oh, my other dream job. That's my other dream job. These are all my dream jobs.
You're living out Katie's dreams right now.
Really are.
Oh, well, that was the first half of my life, dancing, like all the time on quite an intense level, internationally. And then hypnosis sort of entered my life. And 2 years ago, I realized, wow, this has now become 50-50. And that was in the middle of the pandemic, and that's when dancing did not happen at all. Right. As you can imagine, like no courses, no classes.
Yeah.
Nothing, like from 100 to 0, basically. And I realized, okay, this is now a message to me for my path. It's the time to switch. And then I left dancing behind with much love and gratitude for what it has given me. And I embarked on the quantum hypnosis full-time life. And it's the life I'm living right now. And there was not a moment of regret. I love it. I know what I'm here for. And everything that came before was like a stepping stone. And now I'm doing this.
Now, would you say, I think one of the things that I really love about learning about quantum hypnosis and just all of the wisdom that you can channel, at least just in the very beginning stages for us that we're still in, I've already just felt more relaxed about dealing with hardships and thinking about my life and my purpose and everything like that. So would you say that you felt a noticeable difference in yourself where it's not like your problems go away, but it just is maybe easier to cope with?
Definitely. Because I know now that I'm never alone. And I have this whole team around me that wants to help me and that assists me in everyday life. And I guess even in a general way, before people find their own spirituality, it's kind of like you against the world, right? Mm-hmm. Like you are yourself and you kind of have to battle with everything that's going on out there. And once you open yourself up to your spiritual aspect, you kind of realize, wow, there's so much more inside of me and around me that's helping me. Mm-hmm. And that is probably the core of what helped me become more calm and more sovereign, when dealing with problems. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. We said that the other day that, when things started to really in the last couple of weeks in America have been crazy. So it's always crazy. But I was like, thank God we found Dolores when we did, because QHHT, because I was like, right, this is supposed to be really hard. You know what I mean? It was a reminder that this is of what everything is, that it's not supposed to be easy. We're not here to just have fun and to play. We're here to learn and to grow and to evolve. So I think understanding, because a lot of it is, I feel like a lot of people get stuck in the mindset of like, why can't this just be easy? Why can't I just get what I want? And it's like, because you're not meant to, and you just keep fighting this and coming up against resistance. And instead of hearing that or seeing that and understanding, maybe I'm not meant to, people think the world is just out to get them or something.
Or it even like creates, I think, a more limited space if you only think that your life is only what's directly in front of you, as opposed to the bigger picture, and just kind of makes things not feel so stressful because you know that there's more than just what's right in front of you.
Yes, exactly. And something like quantum hypnosis puts it beautifully into perspective. And when you, Katie, said before that when the two of you found QHHT, you kind of felt like everything came together, right? And that's exactly how I felt as well, because at the time I had been on the spiritual journey and I had been reading, a lot of material, the Seit material by Jane Roberts, The Law of One, really great material out there that already touched or was produced by higher dimensional beings. And QHHT kind of compressed it all and made it touchable, because suddenly it was not something that you were just reading about in a book. No, you could actually like experience it yourself. And I love that.
Yeah, no, it is. It feels like
validating.
And the key, like we have a friend of ours who's who's been on the podcast, but she's a psychic medium and Reiki healer and Akashic record reader and all the things, which we want to talk to you about at some point. But when she described reading Akashic records to us at one point, she was like, it's like being in a library. And when I first heard about QHHT and about accessing the library and about accessing that information, she had never even heard, our friend had never heard of QHHT. So it was extra validating. It was like, it's exactly what you described. Everyone's agreeing with you. And that's another fascinating aspect of it. I wanted to ask you that, are you able to access your own Akashic records now on your own? Or do you still have somebody, like, do you have to be a client and go into hypnosis and have somebody help your higher self facilitate it?
No, sense? I can do it by myself now. Well, with the help of my higher self, I should say, which of course we're part of each other, but that's my way of doing it, because of quantum hypnosis. I am so used to working with the superconscious that I now like to incorporate it into like everything that I'm doing. And because of this perspective, they are a great help when working with the records. So it's my go-to partner.
A lot of people are familiar with the subconscious in terms of how we know that obviously we're not aware of it. We operate in ways that our subconscious kind of drives for us, and it is more of the psychology term. And then with the superconscious, are you able to kind of maybe explain a little bit more, maybe what the difference is and how that relates to one individual?
I would say the subconscious mind is something like a supercomputer that serves you in your present incarnation. It perceives everything that you've ever experienced or perceived with your senses, and it kind of runs your whole system, so to speak. It takes care of everything that your conscious mind is not able to take care of, because it's so specifically focused on your everyday experience, and your subconscious kind of takes care of everything else. Your superconscious is the part of yourself that is outside of this incarnation, that decided to stay on the higher dimensions, not come into the body, and kind of look at the whole playing field from a sort of helicopter perspective. And you're kind of down there in the maze, trying to find your way, and you're connected through walkie-talkies.
Right.
If you know that you have this walkie-talkie.
True.
Many people don't. And so your superconscious is much more able to assist you and guide you through your challenges, while your subconscious can sometimes be a part of your challenge, because it does not discern. It does not have the same level of intelligence that your superconscious has, because your superconscious is brilliant and it knows exactly what you came into this incarnation for, what you planned to experience, what the challenges are that you wanted to experience, the lessons you wanted to learn, the people you plan to meet along the way. All of this, your subconscious is not that part of yourself that can give you that information.
Yeah, that's a really good description. I think that makes it very easy to understand the difference, because, and I wonder if, I don't know if you have the answers to this, but I wonder if that kind of relays into dreaming in terms of the difference between a superconscious and subconscious, because we talk about this all the time, like the difference. I astral travel a lot when I sleep, like the whole time, Wow. And it's a little annoying. But I can always tell the difference between a dream that is just my brain processing something that happened that day, and then an actual traveling somewhere else. So I wonder if the subconscious, like your dream of like a person you talked to that day, your superconscious is helping you access other places while you're dreaming. Just a thought.
What you just said, sensing the difference between the different types of dreams is the key here, in my opinion, because your dream world is kind of a stage on which different actors can appear and different directors can organize a play. And some dreams might be organized by your subconscious and you are kind of processing what happened in your life the day before or a couple of days before, while you might have other dreams that are directed by your superconscious and it wants to give you a message,
right?
And with a bit of practice, like you probably do, you can discern and you can kind of realize what is what. And that's, I think, how it's meant to be. Humans would be well served to use their dreams more, because it's such a rich source of information and wisdom. And there's so many different types of dreams. And many of my clients have actually asked the same questions. And so I have heard about the different types of dreams, and it was super interesting too.
Yeah.
I think it's easy, maybe if you're unaware of the walkie-talkie, to kind of mix them up. But like you said, I mean, it makes so much sense as far as when you can learn the discernment, how much it can actually help you.
Yes. It's so helpful to create a system of decoding the language of your higher self, of your superconscious and your subconscious for that matter, because they both use an individual personalized coding that is meant for you and just for you. And the more time you spend actually analyzing it and trying to understand the language, the more they are able to effectively help you. And so dreaming is like, it's its own topic, like by itself.
That's a part two, I think.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, no, I know. It's easy for me to start because it's something that I talk about all the time, because I'm just like constantly living. It feels like I'm always awake. Do you know what I mean? Like it feels like I never asleep. I'm just like, no, something else happened overnight that was just crazy. That was just something else in my world.
And sometimes you meet people and they're like, I never remember my dreams. And I'm like, what? It's like half of the show is like done.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was part of the thing that made me so interested in QHHT, was like the idea of, that you're traveling at night and that you're so, you're following your little string back home to your body, and why people experience sleep paralysis when they wake up. I've never had that, luckily, knock on wood. I'm so scared of that. But I think that makes sense. And it made me feel like, okay, I'm not going crazy. I'm actually going other places. I'm not just losing my mind.
Yes, very important.
Yes.
I wanted to ask about the spiritual team that you mentioned. We've kind of been referring to it maybe as a spiritual pack or a soul pack. And my question is really just if your spiritual team, is it just individual to you, or can there be overlaps with other people, which may be the reason why they're in your life? Or is it more just, specific for each individual?
With spiritual team, you mean incarnated personalities?
I'm thinking more of like guides and
right.
that.
Well, there's both. So yeah, it's kind of both. So yeah, we know like the soul pack of people that could necessarily on the other side make a deal to see you again on this side and be in your soul pack. But then also, is that different than your team? Are those people that you're coming back and seeing, or are those just guides that are guiding you from the other side?
Well, in my experience, spiritual teams consist of guides, definitely, angels, you could say, ascended masters that you resonate with either for your whole life or for a certain part of it, ancestors, and of course members of your galactic family and your soul family. So to me, they're all like part of this one group, I would say.
Okay. Yeah.
And yes, they definitely overlap with other people. I've had the pleasure of talking to many higher dimensional beings in sessions who take care of many people, of many clients that I have worked with. And it's always nice to like, oh yeah, nice talking to you again. And they're like, yeah, we'll see you soon. And it becomes this really nice dynamic between the different entities. Is
there a way of like, how is it? I'm trying not to be like too human and too like on this plane when I'm asking this question. Is it, how do they choose who? You know what I mean? Is it like you're just related, like even though we don't know each other, we have a same soul or like galactic family, so we're descendants of this same galactic line? Or is it just like everyone in Pennsylvania or everyone on the East Coast, like, so is it like, how do they divide who takes care of who?
Picks teams?
Yeah. Who chooses the team?
Well, I guess I would say you pick each other because your higher self definitely does part of the work. They know which entities would be helpful for you. And so I think they organize that to a certain degree. But also you, through your choices and your vibration, you attract certain entities that resonate with you. And so you also have influence on who is part of your team.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I figure, because that's the thing, like you figure it's not, I assume there has to be something, you know what I mean? Like some sort of energy that's pulling you together. But when there's so many humans that have existed and always will exist, it's like, how do you, how among all these people do you choose? Our choice? Right. Yeah. So I think that makes sense that you're kind of called together.
Yes. Yeah, and on their level, they can spread. Like Dolores Cannons, for example, since her transition, she is more active than ever before. And she comes through in many sessions all over the world and does that either to help the client because the client resonated a lot with her and her work, or even with the practitioner. I've had Dolores come through in sessions and just say hi to me, or appear in dreams. And she always says, oh my God, I'm like, I can do so much more now than I used to. And because I don't have to be in one place, right. I can be like anywhere, wherever people think of me, I can be. And so,
it's a comforting, I feel like it's a very comforting concept as well when we talk about this, especially when we talk about people who have transitioned, because, on the earthly plane, everybody deals with loss and death and grief, and it feels so final. And I think just recently, Katie and I have both started to kind of reframe our perspective even on that, in terms of, we'll see you at another time. It's not forever. And I think that it does bring some comfort just hearing you say that too.
And I think it's also, I don't know that it's a coincidence that Dolores transitioned the same year that you began, right? She transitioned 2014 and you began in 2014. So
It's
maybe
true.
that was intentional also, of that maybe she was calling out, people were calling out, or, you know, for other people to take on the work that she was moving on from on this side. So,
Yes.
you know, maybe that was part of your calling.
Well, my body just tingled when you said that. So I would say that could be the case.
Yeah. Like, I don't know that that's very, that seems, there's no such thing as coincidences, you know? So I feel like that's definitely part of it.
I think Akashic Records would maybe be a good place to go. I don't really know too much about them. I know very basic information. So what can you tell us about what they are, how you can access them, and the information they can provide?
The Akashic Record, from what I know, from my perspective, is a collection of all the experiences that have ever been made in incarnational form. Mm-hmm. And let's say specifically on this planet, because that's what humans on Earth are probably most interested in, and that is most relevant for them. It's like an archive of recordings, and it's available to all of us once you know about it, obviously, and then you are brave enough to just try your luck, you know, and access them. And your higher self can be a great help with that, because if you want to use numbers, as far as I know, the higher self is somewhat on the sixth density, you could say, and we're on the third, right, on the verge to number 4, and the Akashic records are somewhere in between.
Okay.
On the 5th floor, you could say. Mm-hmm. And so your higher self has access to them, and this is why in quantum hypnosis sessions you already work with the records, because that's where the lives come from that are chosen for the person to see. And but you don't need quantum hypnosis, obviously, to do that. There are many people out there who are able to read, or who have learned to effectively read the Akashic records, because everyone can do it potentially. And yeah, that's also another part of my work. A couple of years after I learned QHHT, I learned how to read the Akashic records effectively, and I very much enjoy this work.
Yeah, it's the information of everything ever that ever was or ever will be. I don't know how anyone could be like, no, I'm not interested. Right. I think it's more interesting that you do anything else other than just access them. Like, I would just want to do that constantly. But again, I think that's something that's so interesting, because, and I think that people, like, I had heard in the past, because I think I probably started getting into spirituality in like 2010, maybe 2011. So when I first started thinking about it and really getting into it, and I had heard people say that they had downloads. They kept having downloads, and I was like, I don't know what downloads of what, like what are of what, like from who? And then when I started understanding that that's a lot of people are referring to Akashic records, and they're referring to accessing them and downloading information. It's easier to picture it, I think, as a concrete place where you can go access information, because I feel like so many people are like, can't even wrap their mind around just a thing and a place that has something everything.
It's not tangible.
Right.
Like, it's hard for people to conceptualize something when they can't see it or touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also why it's so hard to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's only human, you know, to have a problem with that or a challenge with that. When people in sessions go to the records, and it sometimes happens, you know, between lives, when they went through the death experience in another lifetime and they're on the subtle realm, they sometimes go to places like the Hall of Records or the Temple of Healing, or the Council of Light, because there are these thought forms that do exist and they're very powerful. And it's interesting how these places look a bit different to every person, but also they have these great similarities. Many people experience the Hall of Records as a gigantic library, for example. And I think that there are really big mental concepts being used that humans are more able to digest. Right, even though it's not a place, it kind of appears like one, and it makes it easier.
Right.
Especially because when you're transitioning, you were just human 5 minutes ago. So you're still you're perceiving things through that way. And especially trying to describe it to a human, how else could you
we need human terms.
There has to be some tangible information.
I think something interesting that I read on your website was how there can be a veto, like where your soul may have information that they withhold because you're not quite ready yet. So I kind of wanted to hear maybe a little bit more about that. I just found it was something I never even thought of as a possibility, but I just found really interesting.
Yeah, it's something that comes up rarely, I have to say, but it does come up. And it's something to accept and respect, because your higher self knows what's best for you. And sometimes you're not ready yet, or they don't want to influence your choices with certain pieces of information. And so it's something that I've learned to trust. And in the beginning, I was like very rebellious, and I tried to I didn't give up. And I learned at some point, there's no point in, being overly curious for the client, because it might, do harm to them knowing too much or knowing too early. And the moment will come when the information is right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think there's a lot of, and it's also like, if you're not, if you're given an incredible piece of information, but you're not wise enough to receive it, it's just going to fall on deaf ears. And then it was just a wasted piece of information,
change everything.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. Like later on, you could receive that totally differently. So I think that makes sense, because I started off in this idea, like going to like psychic readings and getting those types of things done. And there were so many times that I've asked questions, not saying all of them were legitimate, but there's been so many times I've asked questions where people were like, we're not getting anything for you on that. And I'm like, huh. And I just think it's sometimes you're just not meant to know. A lot of humans, I think, take that as, oh, then nothing will happen for me. But it's really like, you just can't be trusted.
Protection almost. Like, I feel like it kind of makes me feel protected, at least just knowing that, my higher self is just looking out for me, my personality here on this earth. And if anything, I can only be grateful because there's plenty to deal with already. So my time will come when it's time.
Yes, but I know that way of thinking, and I've had it myself actually. When I had my very first session as a client, not even with my best friend, but with a practitioner at the time, I thought that my higher self is this genie in a bottle that I just need to rub out of it, and then it gives me all the answers that I've always desired on a silver platter. And I actually had to make the experience in my very first session that that's not the case. They don't give you everything you desire. And sometimes you're meant to receive the answers in a different way.
Right.
And I had to realize years after that first session that the answers did come to me in different ways at a different time. And the way they came to me was much more helpful.
Right.
I would not have been mature enough to deal with the answers at the time. So that helped me as someone who experienced a session, but also as a practitioner, to really trust the flow.
Yeah. It reminds me of something that sticks out when I did watch the Dolores Cannons video, where she was talking about this very topic, and she was saying, we can only digest so much as humans. So just visually,
Right.
if you think of it as a newborn baby, you're not going to feed them a steak dinner right away. They have to work their way up to being able to digest it. And again, with the human terms, keeping it very basic, it makes it very understandable for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. That was one of her great talents, to compress complex information into really easily digestible words. Such a gift. Such a
Yeah,
gift.
definitely.
That's a lot. It's a lot to take on. That was and another. So a couple of other questions I have that are a little bit more lighthearted, but I was curious, what are some of the things that are maybe like some of the most common themes you see in sessions with clients, and what is like one of the most uncommon or unusual things you've ever heard someone say?
You mean the higher self?
Yeah, like when you're doing a session with clients, like are there themes or certain things that a lot of people say? And is there anything you've heard that you're like, I've never heard anyone say that before, or anything unique?
Ooh, I would say I've experienced both. There are definitely themes, you could say, but they change over time. And I think they also change with you as a practitioner, because in the beginning, I had a lot of clients who dealt with trauma and who, in their sessions, had this focus on trauma that needed to be healed. And I hardly ever had in the beginning any ET sessions, for example.
Right.
But I knew of other practitioners who constantly had ET sessions and starseeds. And in the last years, that actually changed around. I now have a lot of starseed sessions because I myself also opened up more to that part of my identity as well. And so the themes change. So yeah, you definitely have a lot of human incarnations, obviously, people who want to heal their karma or trauma. ET lives are very, very dominant right now, I would say. And question-wise, most people ask about their life purpose.
Yeah.
Sure, which makes sense. And about their connection to family members and physical ailments, of course. Yeah. I think that is what attracts many people to QHHT, because Dolores talks about it a lot as well, the physical healings. And so, yeah, but I also have a lot of clients who have many metaphysical questions. And I love that, because I'm very curious to always learn new things about how reality works and the universe. And so these are some of my favorite sessions to do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can imagine. I mean, it's like there's so many resources just here on Earth and then in the universe. It's like, why not use everything that you can to get as much information as possible?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that the you having more ET sessions now in Starseed, do you think that has to do more with your journey, or the kind of shift in vibration of the two Earths, the new world, whatever you want to call it? There's definitely been more and more and more and more of a divide of the us and them, people who seem to get it, and then some people who don't. And it's starting to feel more apparent each day that it seems like half of the population, or not half, but some of us are rising to a higher vibration and some are going lower. Do you think that you having more ET sessions now has anything to do with that, of like that we're headed into a different place maybe?
Definitely. Me opening up to that is one factor, and the other is that it's needed.
Right.
And especially in the last months, I've had so many sessions in which the higher self was deeply grateful for the opportunity to help the person remember who they are and where they came from, because they have work to do here. They chose to come here to do a specific job. And I call that a starseed activation, because in that moment, in the session, when they learn about their history and the higher self confirms it and gives them even more details, that's when they're activated. That's when they understand who they are and why they're here. While before, they might have listened to a video and kind of it resonated and they had this feeling in their gut, but they didn't have the knowing. And through the session, they got the knowing. And the higher self always says, we have to have these people woken up now. We have to have them activated. It's very important, as many as possible. So yes, definitely the increase in starseed sessions is due to the necessity.
It feels that way right now. And it was funny because we actually, when I first heard about that, like Dolores saying that we were going to divide, I was like, right, it started happening already. And especially in America, you could really feel it all the time. It feels like there is truly
something is happening.
Yeah, like some of us are not in this reality and some of us are. And I'm like, I don't know. It feels like we're living in different vibrations and different states. And it feels like right now is a time when even us doing this podcast feels like we were called to do it to help even more people learn about these things and spread the word and try to raise as many vibrations as possible in all capacities.
Yeah.
It feels, I mean, I'm somebody who is always very emotional about everything. I embrace it and I own it. And I even just learning about this process and talking to you, it feels like my heart wants to burst because it's just so, it's like a combination of so many feelings of
being in sync and at the right place.
Moments, and also just feeling taken care of and feeling, I don't even know how to describe it. It's one of those feelings that I can't put into words. I just wanted to just say that I'm just feeling a lot of feelings right
She's
now.
also a Cancer and her birthday's coming up and we're in Cancer season. So she's having a lot of feelings.
It's exciting. Like it just makes me feel excited. And it also just is very relaxing at the same time. You know, it makes me feel calmer. Like I was talking about with the perspective of everything, but yeah, I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, I appreciate it a lot. I love that you're sharing this. Thank you so much. And it sounds like you're on the right path.
It does feel that way. I've been somebody who doesn't, it's very confusing for me to listen to my gut. And Katie and I talk about our gut feelings all the time. She's much more attuned to her gut. So for me, learning and, trying to figure out like where the emotions come in, the human emotions, but then also the bigger picture emotions and everything, it's a work in progress, but it does feel like I am in alignment for sure.
Yes. And don't forget, that's a big thing, learning about your emotions, their purpose, and how to use them effectively and learn to love them no matter what they are is big. Like,
yes,
I guess there's only a small percentage of humans who have been able to master that. Yeah. And it takes time and love and patience and also a bit of discipline, I would say, because old patterns can be strong and they need to be overwritten. And I myself have been working on this recently, so I can relate.
Okay.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, maybe everyone's going through that a little bit. We were just talking about the other day about changing the stories we tell ourselves and
what that can do for you.
To change, even what is the story that you're telling yourself? Is that really what's happening, or maybe just us picking up on the negative?
So powerful. And I believe this is why it's so important that you watch and discern what you consume, because everything you take in, because of your subconscious mind, everything you take in is recorded and processed. And by controlling what you consume, you control how you function.
Yep.
And thereby create your reality. And especially in a country like America, like the US, I'm over here, and if I reach out and want to find out about what's going on in America, I can do that, but it's such a big tidal wave of terror, you could say, you know,
It
mental
is.
terror,
Yeah.
that it's like too much very quick.
Yes.
And yeah, it's an interesting place to be in. It definitely challenging, but I mean, from what I know, everyone who lives there chose to be there for a reason.
Right.
And so,
well, that's
I mean,
that was the huge part of us, of me especially. I always used to joke and say, like, am I on the Truman Show? Like, why is my life entertainment or something? Like, why does this keep happening? And then when I realized that I chose all of this, I was like, that does sound like me. That sounds like I would have taken all of that on. That sounds exactly like something I would have done.
Challenge.
I'm somebody who I'm like, no, I can do it. I can handle it. I can do it.
uh-huh.
And now I'm like, oh, I did this to myself. That tracks.
That's so empowering, no?
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
No, 100%. It definitely makes you feel like, right, I chose this because I'm strong enough to do it. Like, I understand when people would say, like, I wasn't a particularly religious person, I'm spiritual, but when people would say, you know, God doesn't give you challenges that you can't handle, I was like, how does he know though? Like, or they know, like, how does God know? Maybe I can't, but understanding I'm the one who gave myself this challenge, I'm like, well, okay, then I can do it. Then I guess I can.
It puts you in a whole different seat, doesn't it?
It really does. It really, really does.
Really quick before we wrap up, because I was just thinking also just about incarnation and the different lives that our soul lives, and how, you know, we don't remember from life to life. There's the amnesia part of it. Right. And when I first started learning about this, for some reason, I just had this momentary fear of, you know, what have I been through before, and like what is still yet to come. It just seems so scary. My mind just goes to worst case scenario. But I'm wondering if, you know, is deja vu, is that kind of incorporated maybe in the reincarnation aspect? You know, when we get deja vu, is that a little glimpse into another life that we had? Or do you know? I don't know if you know.
It's a very interesting question, and actually one that clients have asked in sessions. So I have heard about it. And from what I know, deja vus are moments that have happened very similarly in other incarnations. So you in the other life, you are a different personality, obviously, probably in a different place, a different time, but the essence of the situation, of the experience has been the same. And it kind of bleeds through in that moment. And that's what you perceive.
Got it.
From what I know.
Okay. That makes sense. That's kind of what we thought, but it's like also one of those things where you never, I think it is one of those moments where maybe like you're having a peek through of like a remembrance of like, you've done something. This isn't it. Like, it wasn't just this experience.
It's for me, it was very interesting to hear, because I always thought a deja vu kind of gives you a confirmation of that you are on, like you are experiencing exactly what you planned for example, you know?
Yeah.
Like on this one life line.
Right.
But to actually hear that explanation going into other lifetimes and connecting them with the deja vu, that was super interesting for me to hear.
Yeah.
And it made sense. It kind of resonated.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always been on kind of I'm always looking for things like that, because I'm one of those people who, like, I don't remember my past life, but I have a lot of things that are strong remnants. Like, I'm terrified of the ocean, can't go near it, can't go in it. I know I drowned in the ocean. So there's things like that I've always been like looking for answers, and deja vu was one of those first things that I always I started thinking about and caught my eye. So before we wrap up, because obviously we could talk to you for a million years, there's a million things we didn't even get to cover, maybe we will. Maybe we've had this conversation a million times before.
Right.
But before we go, I wanted to ask you, this is a question that we always ask all of our guests before we wrap up. But in your line of work, especially, it's super prevalent. So in the theme of our podcast being We Don't Know Her, we like to ask you, what is it about you now that when you reflect on yourself in the past that you say, I don't know her, like, I don't know that person, something that you used to do, something you used to say, anything about your former self that you're just like, I can't believe I ever did that. That's not who I am at all now.
I would say judging people.
That's a good one.
Because through this work, I've learned that you can't judge. Like it's not really possible, and it doesn't make sense. And you don't have the information. You don't know what's going on with another person. You don't know what happened to them in the past, in other lifetimes. Judging, definitely. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one. And it's something that
we've been learning to grow out of, because it's so easy to look at other people and not look inward. It's always the easier route, to kind of get your projections out. But once you realize how much work you have left to do for yourself, you can't judge other people.
And you can't, honestly, you can't even judge yourself, because the same thing, it's like, you don't even know what your past lives were. How could you judge yourself? Like, how could you don't know what you've been through? Like, how could you judge yourself?
That's so good.
It's full circle. It's always full circle.
It's true. Like,
well, Mario, let everyone know where they can find you, book sessions with you, learn more about you, please.
Yeah, your social media and everything.
Well, you can find a lot of information about my work on my website. It's www.thesouljourneys.com. It's in German and English, bilingual, which also means I do sessions in German and English. I do sessions in person, on location, here in Frankfurt in Germany, and on the beautiful island of Mallorca in the Mediterranean.
No, what an ideal second location.
Well, my team helped me find that, because I needed a place where I could unwind and recharge, and they brought me there. So
thanks for them.
Yeah, it's an amazing place to be brought to.
Yes. And obviously I do online sessions. You mentioned it before with the BQH, because that's possible. QHHT only in person, BQH online worldwide, no problem at all.
Good. That's a good distinction.
I'm on YouTube with my channel. It's mainly German, but I'm also working on starting an English YouTube channel, because I have a lot of English speaking sessions, and there's great material that my clients allow me to use for that purpose. So I think I want to offer it to the world. And on Instagram, the.soul.journeys.
Yep. And that's with an S, and we'll make sure that we link you and put all that stuff on social media. So if you're looking to follow Mario, please go to our Instagram page at We Don't Know Her Pod. We'll be sure to link your Instagram, your YouTube, your website, and everything else. And we just thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes, we really appreciate it. It was so nice talking to you.
Likewise.
All right.
Bye.